Hi, I'm Dr. Ken Miller, and this is a part of a series of dialogues with clinicians, researchers, and experts on topics that are of interest and very important to cancer survivors. I'm here with Dr. Julia Rowland, who is the head of the Office of Cancer Survivorship for the National Cancer Institute. And Julia, thanks for joining us.
It's really a pleasure to be here, Ken. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to talk about what's the experience like for cancer survivors as they finish treatment.
You know, this has been historically such a neglected area. We focus so much attention on getting people through the diagnostic period onto treatment and supporting them while they're in treatment. And then we get to the end of treatment. Some of them may be very long and arduous and demanding. And we congratulate them and say goodbye, go home, come back in 3 months. And what we hear from survivors is that's very traumatizing. They feel like they have dropped off a cliff, that all of the support that was there before is gone. There's not a lot of information about how do you manage that. Many will tell us that this is the time when they worry that the cancer will come back because you're not taking active treatments anymore. Is it going to grow back in the absence of that? The sense of that supportive environment is gone. All of those nurses and doctors and teams that helped get you through the treatment aren't available to you anymore, so there's worry about who do you call when something comes up. There is that sense that all of the problems that you may have experienced during treatment, the cumulative effects may be weighing heavily, that fatigue, the memory problems, the exhaustion of having gone through this course may be at their maximum. And then the family and social pressures mount. So as you finish treatment, the environment around you shifts gear and says, well, gee, welcome back. We'd like you to do all the things you were doing before, take out the garbage, take care of the kids, go back to work full time. And you may not be ready to do that. So survivors tell us that transition period is a very important one, that we need to acknowledge it for what it is, a transition from active to recovery phase. And we need to help them build time to recover.
When people are on treatment, what is their experience of that? You know, you talked a little bit about the medical environment. What are some of the key things that help people get through the treatment experience?
I think that some of the things that help people get through is actually the structure. So one of the things that's incredibly reassuring in many cases, although we may not think of that from the medical side, is actually having that routine, having that structure in place, having something you know you need to do, and a support network available there. But things that help individuals actually get through this are having their own team. You know, we treat cancer now as a team. We have multidisciplinary specialists who take care of patients. And the expectation is really that the survivor, him or herself, also needs to put a team together. Who's going to be there for the emotional support, for the practical daily kinds of things, for distraction or humor when you need it to get through care. And I think that's a very important thing to emphasize, that nobody does this alone and does it well, that having people in place and asking for help is really important. And I think the other is utilizing resources that are out there and knowing that those are out there. I think it's very important, and we have a wonderful wealth of opportunities for people today, and it's getting that information to people when they need it that's important.
You know, the medical team, I mean, in a sense, is for many people is established. There's doctors, there's nurses, there's other people who are involved. But, you know, what advice would you give to cancer survivors about setting up their own team? I think that's a very interesting idea that we don't think about a lot.
Well, I think many survivors actually do it intuitively. So or family steps in and helps them put that piece together. That they call on friends, they figure out pretty quickly who's going to be there and who's not. Actually, one of the more poignant issues for many survivors are the people who aren't there for them. One of the losses that are not often talked about in the context of cancer illness is people who you thought were going to be there who essentially couldn't deal with your illness, and you lost as friends or committed family members. And those are painful losses. But counterbalancing that, what many survivors will also tell you is the people who came out of the woodwork, who they had no idea even knew they were ill, who did very special acts of kindness, who were wonderful in ways that they had never imagined. That's incredibly gratifying. I think too, for many patients going through this, a lot of things get put on hold. So the existential issues, the more deep personal, may not be addressed during active treatment, and are the things that bubble up at the end when treatment's over, when patients really struggle to make sense of it. Why did this happen? How am I going to put this in a context of the rest of my life? What does this mean going forward? And that teachable moment. What changes do I want to make having had this experience?
So if someone finishes treatment, they've had this team, the medical team, they've had their own team that they've built for themselves. What are all those team members experiencing as someone finishes treatment? How are they looking at the cancer survivor?
Well, that's a really good question. Let me take the medical team first. And it's
Okay.
interesting, we don't allow our medical staff to grieve or say goodbye to patients, and they're on to the next patient. So there's some interesting questions there about what that transition is like for the medical team. You may have a beloved patient who you've seen and cared for intensively for 6 months who leaves your unit, leaves your service, or whatever it is, and we actually don't acknowledge that. So that's an interesting question that probably needs to be re-examined at some point. Friends and family, as I say, make their own transition. They're dealing with this. They're trying to come and make sense out of it. That's why we consider them secondary survivors. They're trying to fit this into their lives and figure out how their relationship is going to be going forward with that individual who's the survivor, him or herself. Does it change? Does it deepen that relationship? Is that the roles going to be different? They need to negotiate their own process through this. And then, of course, the survivor, him or herself, trying to figure out, well, what's my life going to be like now? Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different? Are there things I want to change? And it's not surprising 3 to 6 months after the end of treatment for patients to feel distressed by that, a little overwhelmed, sad and blue, not uncommon. And it takes some survivors by surprise. Gee, I thought it was over. I should be happy. And there is that sort of underlying anxiety, and it's helpful to acknowledge that and say, some people do feel sad at the end of this. It's not a bad thing. If it persists, you definitely want to talk to somebody about it because it's very helpful to be able to process that, to be able to reflect on it, and to acknowledge that there is this sense of transition, these things that you have lost, maybe some things that you've gained, but life is different.
Yeah. Is anxiety a common problem, or is it more depression?
Well, this is a good question because if there's one universal that most patients and survivors will talk to you about, it's that fear of recurrence. Is the cancer going to come back? Lots of other side effects are not necessarily universal. Some people have fatigue, some don't. Some have pain, some don't. But that worry that cancer is going to come back is pretty much a universal. More in some people than others, and sometimes unpredictable. There can be funny triggers to it, so reading in the newspaper that some prominent figure has been diagnosed of died of the disease may make one feel very anxious about one's own health and recovery. Illness of a fellow traveler, you lose someone who you knew in treatment, can be very anxiety-producing. And, of course, the most common trigger are those follow-up visits.
So you're going to see the doctor.
Coming back, is he going to find something? Is she going to tell me, I have some problem related to this? It makes those very anxiety-filled.
Let me go back to sort of the roles that people play. I mean, it could be in the work environment, it could be in the home environment. We have different roles that we play in different situations, and those have oftentimes changed during treatment. Someone wasn't feeling well, wasn't able to do things. What are the stresses for a family, for a survivor, as again they finish treatment and start going back to regular activities?
That's a very important point. It's why I was saying earlier that acknowledging that there is this transition period, that things don't happen overnight, that you don't finish treatment and then go back to being the person you were before. And there are really 2 points about that. And one, it's the sobering reality is you are not the person you were before. And many survivors will tell us that. It's not necessarily a negative. It's simply different, that you are never that naive, in some ways, individual prior to the cancer that you are after the cancer. And negotiating those transitions is important, acknowledging when you're ready to assume something, or you may decide, gee, I'm glad I'm not doing the garbage anymore, and I'd like not to do it. And you have to figure out who is going to do the garbage, kind of determining what those roles are going to be. Sometimes those can be difficult. And I think that because we don't attend to caregivers and family members' needs sometimes, they feel neglected and left out, and as though all the attention has been on the survivor, not entirely inappropriate, but that they've been through this too, and they have needs that need to be met as well. And it's very important to be able to acknowledge that and say, hey, you've done a hard job here too. You need credits for your role and support in this, and it's important to honor that.
So what advice would you give in this period of transition for cancer survivors, the survivor and the other survivors?
Well, I think it's, acknowledge that this exists. Leaving treatment is wonderful and it's scary. So the good and the bad with this. Making time for recovery. I would often tell patients that I saw in my practice that if you think about the first symptom you had and the length of time it took to receive all the treatments to complete your care, if that was 9 months, you have to think about your recovery as taking about that equivalent amount of time, 9 months, or at least that's the benchmark, so that you're not disappointed at 3 or 6 months that you're still struggling, you're still fatigued or whatever. You need that time to recover. And similarly, family members need to know this is their time. They're reintegrating, making sense of the experience as well, and that they have permission to do that, and it's important to process that.
Thank you.
My pleasure.